Hello and welcome to Anime Memories, and on this episode I'm going to be talking about Nodame Cantabile. I've said this before, but I'll repeat it here again. If an anime manages to make me care about something that I wasn't really interested in, it earns massive points. Orchestral music is something that I couldn't care less about, and yet I enjoyed this show immensely. I loved learning about all the different instruments, how orchestras work, and so on. It gave me a new sense of admiration for something that I thought was just a relic of the past. Chiaki is a student at Momogaoka Music Academy who dreams of being a conductor and travelling around the world. The problem is that due to a traumatic event in his past, he is petrified of flying. His situation has caused him to become incredibly jaded and cynical. This starts to change though when he meets a quirky yet extremely talented piano player called Nodame. The biggest change that Nodame makes in Chiaki's life is that she gets him a position as deputy conductor in the Academy's orchestra. There are two main plot lines going on here. Firstly, you have the orchestra who are aiming to get better and perform in bigger venues. This is an enthralling story in its own right because it has the same kind of pull as a sports anime. You get attached to a team of characters and you really want to see them succeed. You get concerned whenever they encounter an obstacle, but you get this feeling of elation when they finally overcome that obstacle. So I could see many people really getting into this plot line. However, I became more attached to the other main plot, which was about Chiaki's growth as a conductor and a person. On the outside, he seems perfect. He's good looking, he's popular, and he's got talent. Not just for conducting, but for piano and violin as well. However, Chiaki is far from perfect and he has a bunch of flaws that he struggles with throughout the anime. One of these flaws is his grouchy and harsh personality, which demoralizes the orchestra at times. Then there's the fact that he is an extreme perfectionist, which causes him to call out various members of the troupe whenever they're playing a part wrong, which, again, disrupts their morale. The conductor is the leader of the orchestra, so for the sake of his players, he has to find a way to direct everyone without being so negative. However, Chiaki's biggest issue is that he struggles with the fear that he may never amount to anything. Even with all his talent, every conductor who's made a name for themselves has done it in Europe, and Chiaki can't go to Europe since he's scared shitless of flying. In my earlier years, I often wondered whether the path I was on was going to lead anywhere, so I can easily relate to Chiaki and his frustrations about his life. I also loved his relationship with Nodame. It was incredibly cute.
But it shouldn't smell. I'm pretty sure I washed it 4 days ago.
Now, if you're expecting a full-on realistic romance, you're not gonna get it here. The little bit of romance that is here is really good, but it's far from the main focus. In fact, Chiaki and Nodame's relationship is more comedic than romantic. Chiaki being straight-laced and Nodame being outlandish leads to many hilarious situations. This brings me to something that I was quite surprised with. This is a comedy. Sure, there are quite a few emotional scenes and the tone does become more dramatic towards the end, but overall, the show is very cheerful and humorous. When I think of classical music, I think old school and serious. I would have never expected an anime with this kind of premise to be so funny. Now, since an orchestra has a ton of musicians, this anime has a very sizable cast. While Chiaki and Nodame are the leads and get most of the screen time, there will be episodes that focus on establishing a certain member of the group. By the end, there are so many memorable characters that you become invested in the orchestra. This really helped increase my enjoyment of the performances. It was always fantastic to see all these likeable characters come together as one. And the most likeable by far is Nodame. I'm not usually a fan of quirky characters since I often find them annoying or extremely unrealistic. However, when Nodame was on screen, I always had a smile on my face. But she isn't just a comedy relief character. In the second half of the show, she receives her own story arc, which hit me really hard. I wasn't expecting to get so attached to someone that's just so goofy.
I was one bite away from the best part on the inside!
The only problem I had with the cast was with the timpani player Masumi, who just so happens to be homosexual. My issue is that his whole personality is based around his sexuality. He's just this stereotypical flamboyant gay guy. I don't think this was offensive at all, but I wish they would have given him a bit more depth. There isn't a huge amount of representation for homosexual people in anime, so this seems like such a wasted opportunity. Moving on to the animation, and unfortunately, it's not very impressive. Shortcuts such as panning and basic backgrounds are used constantly, and when the characters actually do move, everything seems kinda stiff. But this isn't really a deal breaker. The anime is very story focused, so amazing animation isn't required. One positive about the visual style though is that it complements the comedy. The characters' facial expressions as well as the different backgrounds help make the jokes much funnier. In the soundtrack, you get to hear a variety of orchestral works. You've got Beethoven, Mozart, Bach, and a few others. The performances of these pieces were just straight up beautiful. Some of them go past 10 minutes, which was a bit long for me, but overall, these scenes were great. Outside of the performances though, the soundtrack isn't used all that often. For the most part, the scenes were mainly comprised of dialogue and sound effects. This worked surprisingly well. I am sure that by combining humorous dialogue with a bunch of clanging and crashing sounds, I was able to laugh more than I otherwise would have. When it comes to the dub, it's okay, but there aren't many standouts. With one exception though. Kate Higgins perfectly captures Nodame's energetic and weird personality. It's exactly how I would envision Nodame talking if she was a native English speaker. Another aspect of the dub that might be annoying for some people is that the European characters speak with European accents.
Ha! Of course not. Nothing so trivial.
This didn't bother me. I thought the voice actors did a decent job. However, it's really clear that these accents aren't organic, and at times they even sound forced. If you only watch dubs, then this will be fine. However, if you could go either way, the sub is definitely the best option. Nodame Cantabile is one of those anime that has gained a niche following, but outside of that it's mostly unknown. I think the reason for this is the lack of overlap between anime fans and orchestral fans. But you don't need to be a fan of orchestral music in order to enjoy this. The story and the characters are more than good enough to keep you engaged. So if you're in the mood for a fun comedy with some great drama as well, you should definitely check out Nodame Cantabile. I also recommend its two sequels, the Paris chapter and the finale. Although, I don't think either of these have an English release, so you're gonna have to resort to fan subs in order to watch them. So anyway, thank you very much for watching. If you have any feedback, feel free to leave a comment, and if you like this video and want to see more, feel free to subscribe as well. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.